My life was brightened so many years ago when, through mutual friends, I got to meet Jamie Hall. And if I think of a true flame, because correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hall, you were there as a student, you've been there as a broadcaster, and now you are there just as a jack of all trades, master of all as well.
I don't know about all that, but yeah. What you're saying is I'm getting old, I think, but I always joke with people. I started broadcasting the games when I was 6 years old, so I'm not as old as it seems. No, that's not true. I wish it were true. But yeah, I started in college and still going.
I've done some research. I felt that the research I had done shows me it's better to get older than not get older.
That's a very good point. You're right. The alternative is not good.
Well, I mean, obviously the alternative is great in a way of, we're going to heaven, but no need to rush that. No need to, get on the acceleration lane.
Exactly.
So, anyway, speaking of heaven, the Flames aren't undefeated, which I think has got to be heavenly for Jamie Chadwell. How did you think they played last week in the conference home opener with UTEP?
It's funny. You look at the stats, and I guess you put a lot of weight on UTEP losing to an FCS school the week before, and you're playing at home, and you go, okay, this should be a 4, 5, 6 touchdown game, but it's college football, and there's no secrets anymore. Coaches and the staffs, the defensive coordinators, everything's so advanced now, and teams are improving from one week to the next. I don't know, a season ago, you win 28-10. I don't think you'd even flinch at that. You go, okay, UTEP, of course, that had been on the road, but nevertheless, you beat UTEP 28-10. You go, okay, yeah, that's a solid win. But I think the expectations are just so high that you get off to a little bit of a slow start in each of the games. But even still, I mean, it was 14-3 at halftime. The offense, I guess, it's just not as pretty as it was a season ago. And when you get used to seeing a nice, beautiful, shiny piece of jewelry, and then now you've got a more utilitarian old school Timex watch on instead of the Rolex. You got the old school, but it still tells time. It's still winning football games, but it just maybe doesn't win the eye test as much this season as it did a year ago, but you're 3-0, and that's all you can ask for.
Whose expectations, when you talked about they're not meeting expectations, whose expectations are these? Are they the fan base? Are they the team? I mean, obviously, I think when you play in a New Year's Day Bowl, expectations are going to ramp up from somebody somewhere tremendously.
Well, the fans' expectations are just sky high, and that's what fans do. You go 13-0. You go to the Fiesta Bowl, you're going to expect with a good chunk of the team back from a season ago that you're going to have that same level of success, but there are some different pieces, and there have been some injuries. So there's a few things that, you're dealing with. And if I'm an optimist, I look at it, I go, the defense looked great against UTEP. They're forcing some turnovers again. That was really their calling card a year ago, and they're kind of coming into their own, and that's good. And the offense is slowly getting there. But yeah, it's not. We just haven't seen those huge plays. We haven't seen those Caden Salter breaks 12 tackles and runs 46 yards for a touchdown. We haven't seen the flashy stuff. They've done just enough to win. They didn't look very pretty against Campbell. They squeaked out a win, had to come from behind on the road at New Mexico State, and a team that I think most people thought they should blow out. They won by 18, but really they also could have scored late in that game and made it a bigger deficit, but they did the right thing and took a knee and let the clock run out. But yeah, I think the expectations from the fans are super high, but I think inside their locker room the expectations are high. You won the first 2 games, and if you just listened to Coach Chadwell's press conference, you would have thought they lost the first 2 games. And that's not a knock on him. It's just he didn't feel his team played up to their ability. And they were able to figure out a way to win, and that's the kind of the culture and their mantra of striking the stone. They did what they had to do to win, but it hasn't been quite as fluid and pretty. But the penalties were the big issue in the first 2 games. and they cleaned that up against UTEP. So that's a nice step in the right direction.
I think the thing that would concern me if I was looking at the critical eye, which maybe I speak Chadwellese on this one, but I thought defense had a chance to have some TFLs tackled for losses. They let some guys get away, and guys were picking up 3, 4, or even more yards against UTEP. And it seemed like it happens at key times.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think that even it's hard to nitpick too much at 13-0 regular season last year, but if you did want to nitpick last year, there were some occasions where the defense had to rely on forcing turnovers to either win ball games like Sam Houston State or win comfortably in other ball games. And so that's part of it. I mean, you can't take the turnovers away. That's part of the game. But at the same time, I think Coach Chadwell would love to see what you're saying. He would love to see some 4 and outs, some getting teams in 2nd and 12 and 3rd and 11s, and and not really forcing yourself to force the turnovers to be able to win these games. So yeah, there's certainly some improvements to be made, but it's funny, you get spoiled easily, and I'm telling you, if you turn back the clock and you go, okay, Liberty's going to move up to FBS, and after 5 years, they're going to play their first home conference game against UTEP, and they're going to win 28-10. I think the fans would have been like, oh, okay, good. That's a good start to the conference season. Pretty good defensive game. You beat them by 18. All right, yeah. And now we're ripping apart everything, and the fans are saying, the sky's falling because you didn't beat UTEP by more than that. And it's just funny how, when you look at the big scheme of things, they're way, way, way ahead of schedule as far as where most franchise organizations, schools would be at this point in their FBS existence.
Injuries are part of the game as well, and Liberty's offense is getting, I don't want to say dismantled, but it's a lot of, bandaging up injuries. Going forward, how do you see the offense, I don't want to say faring, but what do you think the offense looks like in terms of, are they able to move the ball easy? Is it going to be a real challenge? I mean, the offensive line has gotten banged up a little bit. They've got new people playing. Obviously, when you lose C.J. Daniels to the portal, that hurts on the outside. Now your running backs are, I love Chadwell's theory of next man up. I get that, and that is absolutely 100% true. But you're getting guys banged up offensively. How much of a challenge is that?
Yeah, I guess it'd be easier to answer your question if I knew just how long Quentin Cooley was going to be out. If he's day to day, if this ends up being a week, okay, you can probably be all right. If he's going to be out for a month or so or more, then that might change my answer a little bit. But they've got some good. Look at Von Blue.
Sure,
here's a kid who had some breakout games, and then he had to deal with injuries pretty much all of last season. And so he's now going to have a chance to step up and do something big. And a little bit more will be on Caden probably as well, running the football on that front. But Billy Lucas came in and he played huge in release. Finished up with over 100 yards, 21 rushes, and 3 touchdowns. So if at that point, you kind of go, all right, well, maybe the cupboard's not as bare as you think. They've got some talent in that running back room, and Darius Copeland, that's a big loss. That's going to be tough too. But somebody's going to have to step up. Somebody who maybe we weren't expecting to step up is going to have to step up. And so I think ultimately, I don't want to say, you never want to say, an injury is a good thing, but having to deal with this. Maybe that little jolt that Caden Salter, and he's not had bad numbers, don't get me wrong. He went 15 and 19 this week, 228 yards. He just hasn't been as explosive running the ball as we've seen in the past. But maybe now he's put in a position to where he has that extra little bit of a fire under him, pardon the pun, and we see Caden Salter next level now.
I think a lot of people would love to have the running back room that Liberty does.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, you hate to lose a guy like Quentin Cooley for any amount of time, but they've got some pretty good guys backing him up.
I try to talk Liberty football with somebody on my podcast each week, whether it's you, Nick, Alan, Pat Kelly, who does the podcast with Nick or whatever. I think we talked last year. Did we talk the week of the BYU game?
I think so, because I think we were talking about the history of the program and being, again, back then we were talking about being ahead of schedule, and that was
right.
That was a couple years ago, and the vision that Jerry Falwell Sr. had, and BYU was a team that he mentioned specifically, and Notre Dame as far as trying to get to that level. So yeah, I think so. I believe that was around the time we talked last, or that we talked at that time.
I don't know if we said it was the biggest game in the history of Liberty University, but I have to ask that question again because East Carolina is a very reputable school. I mean, maybe they're not, the East Carolina that, people would see on New Year's Day or anything, but they're still East Carolina, so that's still pretty good. With that being said, is this the biggest game in the history of Liberty?
No, I probably wouldn't say that. I think you still probably look at BYU as far as, and well, I mean, you beat Virginia Tech down at their place. You played them at your place. There's been some big games. It's tough to say the Fiesta Bowl. I don't know if it gets any. I know the result. If you're just result based as far as whether it was a big game or not, you're probably not going to say the Fiesta Bowl. But just being on that stage and being in that arena is probably the biggest stage that the Flames, certainly the biggest stage that the Flames ever been on. But I would still probably put BYU there just because it fulfilled a very specific goal in the mission of the program, and of course the game went well also. So not to take anything away from ECU, you got Skip Holtz, and you go back to they've had a whole lot of success over the course. I know a little bit of a rocky season a year ago, and they're trying to turn things around. But yeah, if I can go back to when I was in college or a little bit after that and think about the EA Sports college football game that has now come back, and it's the biggest thing in the world, of course.
Right.
But I go back to those days, and I remember ECU and Southern Miss and some of those teams that were really good back in, we're talking the early 2000s or somewhere in that range. And now you're playing those teams, and not only are you playing those teams, which if you'd have told me back in 2000 that the Flames would be playing an FBS schedule and now in a conference and everything, I don't know if I would have believed you or not. But not only are you playing those teams, but you're a favorite against those teams. It's the expectation is to beat ECU. The expectation is to beat UTEP and teams with so much history and pageantry behind their programs, and you'll see that again next week with Appalachian State, although not quite the same as they've moved up the ranks as the Flames have moved up the ranks, but a team that's had huge success at FCS level and then never really missed a beat once they moved up to FBS either.
Got to go to Boone to see that one though, but for the reason I asked about the ECU is that the biggest game is I don't remember tickets being as scarce or sold out as they have been early. Correct me if I'm wrong. Have tickets gone at other games this early before?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure if that early in the week. Maybe not. Maybe that is a record as far as that's concerned. It's kind of the perfect storm with it being a college for a weekend on campus, parents' weekend. So a lot of parents. I got some friends that are coming in. They've got kids at Liberty as they're coming into town, and also a very recognizable name, a regional team where their fans are going to come out in pretty good numbers too. So you put all this together, and it should be a pretty exciting environment at Williams Stadium on Saturday.
All right, let me get ready to close up shop here with this one. We're talking to Jamie Hall. Tell us what you do for college football for the Flames on Saturday.
Well, we do something fun that we kind of added a few years ago of putting the booth cam, the broadcast, the radio broadcast booth cam on Facebook Live, and our hope is to expand that. It's on, I guess you could say, tape delay on YouTube and Twitter, but our hope is at one point to have it live on all of the above, but it is on Facebook Live. And it gives you a little bit of a behind the scenes. You're seeing what's going on with Alan York and Jason Porter in the booth, and you can't see Nick, but you can hear Nick Pierce down on the sideline, and it's got the pregame and the postgame. So we produce that, and kind of, for those that understand the terminology, switch it, basically going back and forth from different scenes and breaks and whatnot. And so that's pretty much my main responsibility on game day. And then I throw on a pair of binoculars and kill two birds with one stone and do some defensive spotting for Allen as well on who made the tackles. And so got to say Joe Carter's name an awful lot last week.
Yeah.
He was lighting it up on the defensive side, made a ton of tackles. But yeah, that's a game day for me. And then there are some occasions when we get closer to basketball season where Nick has to be, or somebody, well, yeah, so it's Nick. Nick usually has to take the men's basketball reins if there's an overlap, and I'll jump in and fill in for him every once in a while down on the sideline if need be. And then of course sometimes we're all engaged because women's basketball might be going on and I might be on the road with them, and Nick fills in for Alan on men's basketball wherever they are, and then Alan and Jason are doing three jobs at once for a football game. So November gets exciting, but between now and November I'll be doing the Facebook stuff and the spotting, which is a lot of fun.
You've been around Liberty for a few years, like we've mentioned. You've gotten to know a lot of the coaches. I would never ask you to say anything bad about anybody, especially me or you, but you would probably do that for free. But with that being said, how authentic is Jamie Chadwell, and how much have you kind of gotten to know him in a way?
Well, he's a good dude, and I knew that was the case coming in because my mom, I moved around a lot when I was a kid, but we ended up in a place called Tazewell, Tennessee, which is middle of nowhere, but it's about 45 minutes north of Knoxville. Okay. And when she found out that Jamie Chadwell was going to be the head coach, I shouldn't say when she found out, when some of the other people found out that knew her, they think, oh, yeah, I hear your son's football team up there, they got a new coach. Oh, he's a good dude. Anderson County, Tennessee, this, and so word gets around pretty quick, and everything anybody said to my mom was, oh, they're going to love him up there. They got to keep him up there. They got to keep him up there. He'll do great. He's the perfect fit. And that's what it's all about. You're just trying to find guys and gals, as far as coaches of other sports that fit the culture, that want to be at Liberty, have the character that you expect from someone who works at Liberty, but also has obviously a genius mind for the game of football and has won at every single level he's been at. A lot of times in situations where he might not have had the resources that other teams had, and he was still successful, and now he's at Liberty and he does have the resources, and you just expect that the sky's the limit for a guy like that. And just a nice guy that's going to come up and say hi to you, and he's going to talk to the fans, and he's going to interject with people. We do a coaches show over at Mellow Mushroom on Tuesday night. Yep. And if somebody comes up, he's going to talk to him. He's going to, work the room, I guess you could say. And it's just an all around, it's a person you want to be around. I guess sure. That's the best way to put it. And he's true. He's genuine, 100%.
Yeah. I saw him speak at the Ignite conference that is at Thomas Road. I think it was not this past year, but the year before that. And, when you hear him in the post game to say, that's not what we're all about. And basically to me, it said, that's not what I'm about in terms of, people are a little miffed of why is UTEP calling timeouts at the end of the game when the decision is already in hand. And Chadwell could have punched it in. I mean, he easily could have punched it in if he wanted to, but I thought he showed the character of what a man that you want, or a person of what you want at Liberty University to be.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And you can see that with the entire family. Just, just good people. And that's what you want. That's who you want to be around. And it makes you feel like you're part of a family, and that, not just him, but that entire coaching staff, they want to have fun. They enjoy life. It's serious when it needs to be serious, but they have these locker room celebrations, and it's just a culture of We need to do the right thing, and we need to do it with character. But it's a game, and we need to have fun, and they do. And you can't help but have fun when you're around them.